I've got this story I need to tell. Honestly, it freaks me out just thinking about it. So, about 7 years ago, I got this random invitation in the mail. It was from my cousin, someone I'd never actually met in person. We'd only talked on the phone a couple of times, and even then, it was just small talk. His name was Mark, and he lived in some rural area I'd never heard of. The invitation was for a dinner party at his place, and honestly, I was kind of surprised. I mean, why invite me now after all these years? But I figured, hey, why not? It'd be nice to finally meet him and his family. The invitation had an address on it, but when I tried to put it into my GPS, it didn't recognize it. I had to dig out an old map and figure out the route myself. It was a pain, but I managed to pin the location. The drive there was weird. I kept going further and further away from anything familiar. It was just trees, fields, and the occasional farmhouse. At one point, I started thinking, where the hell am I going? But I kept driving, following the map. Finally, I found a house that matched the address. But when I pulled up, I wasn't sure if it was the right place. The house looked off. It was this old, kind of rundown place, completely surrounded by overgrown trees and bushes. The whole thing just had this dull, dreary vibe to it. I remember sitting in my car, staring at it and thinking, this can't be it. But then, as soon as I pulled into the rocky driveway, this couple came out to greet me. They introduced themselves as my aunt and uncle, Deborah and Tom. They seemed really excited to see me, which was nice, but also a little overwhelming. I mean, I'd never met these people before, and they were acting like we were long-lost family. I followed them inside, and the first thing I asked was where Mark was. They said he'd gone out to run some errands and would be back later. That seemed a little odd, but I didn't think too much of it. We spent the next couple of hours talking, mostly about my mom and the rest of the family. My aunt made this amazing pot roast, and I devoured it in minutes. After dinner, we played this intense game of Uno. It got really competitive, and I remember laughing a lot. It was actually kind of fun, which made me feel a little better about the whole situation. But as it started to get dark, I realized Mark still hadn't shown up. I figured I should probably head home. It was getting late, and I didn't want to get lost trying to find my way out of there. My GPS wasn't working, so I asked my aunt and uncle for directions to the highway. That's when things got weird. They both gave me this puzzled look, and my aunt said, "I thought you were staying the night?" I told them I couldn't because I had work the next morning and couldn't afford to miss another day. But they insisted, saying it would be better if I left in the morning. "Trust me," my uncle said. "You'll get lost if you try to leave now." I brushed it off, telling them not to worry. I said I was good with directions and could find my way out of anywhere. But they kept pushing, almost like they were getting frustrated with me. Finally, I gave in and agreed to stay the night. I was getting tired of arguing, and honestly, I just wanted to get some sleep. They seemed really happy about my decision, which I thought was kind of strange. As soon as they went upstairs to get some bed sheets and pillows, I had this sudden feeling like I needed to leave. I don't know what it was, but something just didn't feel right. So I grabbed my stuff, ran out the door, and got in my car. It took me a while to find my way out of there, but I eventually made it back to the highway. I got home about an hour later than I expected, and it was already 11 p.m. I didn't want to wake my parents up, so I climbed over the fence and went in through the back door. But when I walked into the kitchen, the lights were on, and my mom was sitting there looking pissed. "Where were you?" she asked. I told her I'd been at Aunt Deborah's, and she just stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Then why did she call saying you never arrived?" I froze. My stomach dropped, and I felt this cold wave of fear wash over me. I didn't know what to say. To this day, I still don't know who I visited that night. I've tried to figure it out, but nothing adds up. The address, the house, the people, none of it makes sense. All I know is that something wasn't right, and I'm just glad I got out of there when I did.